Good morning, it's Ash of Asheric Meditation back to read to you the sixth part of this book, Good Citizens, Creating an Enlightened Society by Thich, Nhat, Hanh. It's been probably a week since I've recorded another section of this book, so I apologize for being tardy. It'll probably happen again. But we're going to jump right back into section 6. It's a pretty long section. There is a chance that this is how much. There's a chance that I'll probably get halfway through and then may need to take a break and come back. We'll see how it goes. So I've got coffee and water, so I will try to get through it all in one sitting. So it'll probably be about an hour, more than an hour, I think, of reading. We'll see. So thank you so much for joining me. And if you want to catch the first 5 parts of this book, or if you want to listen to 2 other books that I've read, you can find them on my YouTube. So if you look at my name up here, Ash of Asheric Meditation, on YouTube, it's just Asheric Meditation. One sec. Okay, the other books I've read for YouTube, the first one being No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Transforming Suffering, same author, and then Calming the Fearful Mind, A Zen Response to Terrorism, same author. There's another book from this same author that we're going to read after this one. And so it's good reading. It's good mindfulness reading. It's good wisdom for the brain. I read these books every year because they're small and easy to get through. And it helps me feel balanced and connected to the world around me. All right, let's get back in. The fourth noble truth, an ethical way of life. There we go. I'm just seeing who's in here. Thank you so much for the joining. Thank you so much. All right, the second noble truth shows us the way of living that leads to suffering. But the third noble truth reminds us that well-being and happiness are possible. There is a way of living ethically that can lead us out of our suffering. Only if we live ethically can we experience happiness and well-being. This way is the Noble Eightfold Path, the fourth noble truth. It is the path leading to well-being, and it is also the path of ethics. The two cannot be separated. Because of the nature of interbeing, there is no true well-being that does not consider the well-being of others. The Eightfold Path consists of 8 guidelines on how we can be in the world. The Eightfold Path guides us to perceive, think, and act in the way that both brings us happiness and creates more happiness in the world. There is no difference between the two. The 8 aspects of the Eightfold Path are right view, right thinking, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right diligence, right mindfulness, and right concentration. How do we know what is right? What do we mean by right? Everyone wants right thinking, but what is it? We need mindful breathing, mindful sitting, mindful reflecting in order to bring about the right thinking and right speech. It must truly be right thinking because our thinking might be wrong, yet we think it's right. During World War II, the decision to drop the atomic bomb was the thought to be right thinking, but was it? How should we think in order for our thinking to be right? What is right speech? By right, the Buddha meant moral and ethical. Morality and ethics can be a code of conduct that we would like to accept and follow. There are 5 sets of criteria that can help us judge whether something is right or wrong. The first set of criteria, suffering and happiness. The first set of criteria for determining right and wrong is whether something brings suffering or happiness. Whatever brings suffering is wrong, whatever can bring happiness is right. That is one set of criteria, dukkha and sukha. But to use this set of criteria, we have to remember that there is a difference between suffering and pain, because pain can be unavoidable, but that doesn't mean we have to suffer. For example, separation can be painful, but if you're animated by a strong ideal and a strong vocation or a strong aspiration, you can accept separation in order to realize your aspiration. When Siddhartha, the Buddha, left home, he had to leave behind his wife, his child, his family, everything, in order to accept the hard life of an ascetic. You might be able to accept leaving your family and the comfort of your daily life in order to engage in a harder kind of life because you want to realize something important. This will ease pain of separation. There is separation, but there is no suffering. Suffering is not a simple thing. Sometimes pain is only pain, and when you are able to accept pain, you don't suffer. So there must be some difference between pain or lack of comfort on the one hand and suffering on the other. Happiness is not always a simple thing. There is a difference between happiness and pleasure, just as there are differences between pain and suffering. Many of us regard pleasure as happiness. If you inject a dose of heroin into your body, you feel pleasure. But there are those of us who don't see it as happiness. Some of us feel we're very happy drinking a lot of alcohol. There's a feeling of pleasure. But is it truly happiness? So pleasure may be different than happiness. There are kinds of pleasure that look like happiness. That's why we have to look more deeply. Pain is not exactly suffering. It can't be identified with suffering. And pleasure is different from happiness. It's not exactly the same as happiness. Suppose you like hiking, and you go hiking for the whole day. You climb and you get hot and you get scratches. You seem to suffer during the hike. There are people who prefer to stay home and watch television instead of going hiking. But if you are climbing and enjoying being on the mountain, perhaps when you think of those who are in their living rooms watching television, one program after another, you may feel sorry for them. So who is happy, the hiker or the television watcher? It depends. Some consider going to school to be unpleasant, and they suffer. But there are children and young people who love to study and who find happiness in their studies. So whether going to school is dukkha or sukha depends on you. It's very hard to use this criterion of happiness or suffering to define whether going to school is right or wrong. So this set of criteria isn't enough. The second set of criteria: beneficial and unbeneficial. The Four Noble Truths could be understood as saying that everything that leads to suffering is wrong and everything that leads to the cessation of suffering is right. But we have to look more deeply into the nature of happiness and suffering in order to better understand. That is why we have another set of criteria called beneficial and unbeneficial, or what brings well-being as opposed to that which is harmful. Whatever is beneficial to you, to your health, your understanding, or your learning is good. And what is not beneficial is bad, is wrong. Getting an education is beneficial. So this second set of criteria could support going to school and learning. When you drink alcohol, you get pleasure, but you know that drinking too much alcohol will harm you. It's not beneficial. So this set of criteria can help you to see more clearly. There are mental formations we describe as beneficial, like joy, compassion, forgiveness, and understanding, and love. Every time you touch the seeds of compassion, joy, or brotherhood in you, it will manifest as a mental formation and make you happy. This kind of practice helps develop your joy and happiness. These beneficial mental formations are also in your loved ones. So there are ways that you can help another person by touching these beneficial things in him or her, so that these beneficial formations will manifest and make that person happy. And if that other person is happy, you will profit. So according to this set of criteria, What is beneficial and what is not beneficial determines what is right and what is wrong. The third set of criteria, deluded or awake. There is another set of criteria we can use based on whether you are deluded or awake. When your mind isn't clear, you're not awake. You have wrong judgment, you make the wrong decision, and you do the wrong thing. Suppose you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol. You will not be clear-sighted. You will easily be deluded, and whatever decision you make in that moment cannot be right. Suppose you're very angry with your child. In that moment, your anger makes you not lucid or clear. If in such a moment you write a document saying that you don't want your child to benefit from your inheritance, your decision will not be right. Don't do anything when you're not awake and clear-minded. Wait until you're yourself and quite awake before you make a decision. Deluded and awake is a set of criteria that can help determine what is right and what is wrong. The fourth set of criteria, to open or to bar the way. Another set of criteria we need is knowing when to open up and when to bar the way. To open means something you need to make an exception. Suppose you don't want to lie. You believe that telling the truth is always a good thing to do, and that telling a lie is always wrong. But suppose someone is looking for a particular person in order to kill him, and he comes to ask you whether you've seen that person or if you know where he's hiding. If you tell the truth, the other person will be killed, so you are forced to tell a lie. No, I haven't seen him. You're motivated by compassion and you open. You allow yourself to lie and to make an exception. Morality without that kind of mental dexterity and flexibility would not be intelligent. That is why to open, to make an exception, to allow is a very important thing to do. Does the physician have the right to tell a lie to his patient? You are supposed to tell others the truth, but there are many ways of telling the truth. If you don't tell the truth at the right time, in the right place, the other person could die from hearing it. That's why you choose a good time to tell him, so that he can receive the truth without having too big a shock. So how to decide whether or not to tell the truth, and how to tell the truth in a skillful way, is something a doctor should learn. Sometimes we choose not to tell the truth in order to help the other person to survive. So it's not simple. It's quite complicated. That's why we need deep understanding to be able to practice opening the door and making exceptions. To bar the way means that sometimes, even when something isn't inherently wrong, you have to refrain from doing it. Suppose you drink a glass of wine every weekend. It gives you pleasure to drink an occasional glass of wine, and in the last 30 years it hasn't damaged your body and you've never gotten drunk. Now you come to a retreat and people advise you to refrain from drinking alcohol completely, so you ask the question, why? Since it hasn't done you any harm, why do you have to deprive yourself of this pleasure? A lady in England once asked me this question. She said, why do I need to stop drinking my glass of wine? It's my pleasure. I told her, well, I know that you're perfectly right when you say it hasn't done you any harm, but children tend to do as their parents do. If parents smoke, the children are likely to smoke. Perhaps you don't have the seed of alcoholism in you, but one of your children may have it. To stop drinking is to support your children. It's not for your sake, but for your children's sake. That's what it means to bar the way. We want to prevent a harmful thing that may happen in the future. We are supposed to drink with moderation, but the fact is that if you don't take the first glass, you never risk taking a second or third glass. So refraining from taking the first glass is to bar the way. You yourself may do something and never get harmed at all, but your younger sibling may do the same thing and be harmed. Someone who drinks alcohol and then drives home and gets there safely is very lucky. If he says, I've been drinking and I'm all right, he doesn't realize he's just been lucky. So to not drink alcohol before you drive is to bar the way. to set an obstacle before you that the harm and suffering can't happen. The fifth set of criteria, appearance and substance. The final set of criteria is appearance and substance. Sometimes it doesn't look like we're transgressing an ethical guideline when in fact we are. Suppose you're in a place where someone is trying to kill someone else and you have the capacity to intervene and prevent the damage, but you don't do it. Although you're not the killer, you're violating the precept of not killing. You're not killing directly, but you allow the killing to take place. This is called non-intervention. You don't intervene, and this is as much an action as acting to cause the harm. You are still responsible for your actions, so when you see a situation like that, you should intervene. You can't say, well, I am not responsible, it wasn't me who was doing the killing. But you were there, and you didn't intervene. You are responsible. Sometimes we're forced to lie in order to save a life. If we don't lie, it's a transgression. On the level of appearance, not to lie is the right thing, but in terms of substance, not to lie is wrong, because if you don't lie, the person will die. This is an important set of criteria. On the level of appearance, it looks right, but in terms of its content and context, it's wrong. Sometimes you have to lie, and sometimes you have to kill. It's very different. Applied ethics is a discipline that studies how a moral outcome can be obtained in specific circumstances. Hello, Rich. Good morning. How are you today? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining. We don't have to speculate whether something is right or wrong. We have to question the norms that have been set up to see if our behavior is truly ethical. We can use these ethical criteria in daily life. Ultimately, we work to transcend all criteria and norms. Buddhist ethical philosophy can be summed up in the following terms. Both subject and object of perception manifest from consciousness according to the principle of interbeing. Humans are present in all things, and all things are present in humans. On the phenomenal level, there seems to be birth and death, being and non-being. But ontologically, these notions cannot be applied to reality. The dynamic consciousness is called karma energy. Everything evolves according to the principle of interdependence, but there is free will and possibility to transform. There is probability. The one affects the all, and the all affects the one. Interbeing also means impermanence, non-self, emptiness, karma, and countless world systems. Right view allows right action, leading to reduction of suffering and the increase of happiness. Happiness and suffering are inter-are. The ultimate reality transcends notions of good and evil, right and wrong. An example of using the right criteria, the atomic bomb. U.S. President Harry Truman ordered the dropping of the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. 140,000 people died right away. Before that, President Roosevelt had said very clearly that in war you have to try your best to avoid killing innocent people. President Truman had also said the same thing, but the United States had just succeeded in making the first atomic bombs, and the military and political advisors urged him to use them. At the time, the Allies were already winning in the Pacific, yet military and political advisors tried to persuade President Truman to use the atomic bomb. At first, he didn't want to do it because he wanted to avoid taking the life of civilians. But finally, they were able to convince him to drop the bomb on the grounds that Japan would surrender after it was dropped. Otherwise, the war would continue longer and many people would die. If we end the war by killing a number of people now, then we will save the many people who might otherwise have died later. That is the argument of right or wrong. That is the situation where ethics and morality should be applied. it's not easy. I think the discussion sessions must have been very long before the decision was made to drop the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. But I know that these discussions did not take into account right view. President Truman said that after making this decision, he slept like a baby. How can you sleep well when you know in advance that 140,000 lives will be taken? Maybe he had spent so many hours listening and discussing that he was exhausted. The bomb was dropped on the 6th of August, and on the 7th, Japan had not surrendered. On the 8th, Japan had still not surrendered, and so there was pressure exerted to drop another bomb. So on August 9th, 1945, the second bomb was dropped, this time on Nagasaki, a smaller town. But when we know that the effects of an atomic bomb are very long-lasting, and many, many people continued to get sick and die from the fallout. This is an extreme example, but a true ethic must be able to deal with these extremes. The Noble Eightfold Path transcends all other criteria. The Buddha began the Noble Eightfold Path with right view so that we would have the framework that helps transcend all other criteria in determining right and wrong. Right view is the formation of all other actions, whether thought, spoken, or acted out. If you've thought through these 5 sets of criteria and you're still not sure if something is right, you can always return to the base. If you want to look deeply to see if something is right or wrong, we need to use the lens of right view. Right view is the foundation. Right view is Buddhism's deepest understanding and absolute criterion. In Buddhism, we speak of liberation from fear and suffering in terms of understanding. Right view is what liberates us. Right view. The path leading to well-being has to be with right view. Right view is the fruit of a practice of mindfulness and concentration. Instead of beginning the Eightfold Path with right view, the Buddha could have begun with right mindfulness, because mindfulness leads to concentration, and concentration leads to insight, or right view. But right view is the foundation of all ethical action. When you have right view, your thinking is right thinking, and your speech is right speech, and your action is right action. Right view is the view that transcends all views. It is free from discrimination, free from dualistic thinking. As long as you're caught in one view, you can't have right view. It is possible for us to consider all kinds of views and not to be caught in any of them. When we speak of right view, we don't mean a view that is superior to all other kinds of views. Right view is the absence of all views. We know that all views should be removed. All views includes the teachings in this book. All teachings should be considered to be instruments and not absolute truth. Even the teaching on impermanence, no self, and interbeing. We have to make sure that we are focused on insight and not on a particular view. The Buddha has used the example of the flame of a match. You have to strike the match skillfully in order to bring about the flame. When the flame has manifested, it will consume the match. When insight is born, it will consume the view. There is no longer any view. You are free. There is insight, not view. It is the insight that liberates you, not the view. This is very important in the teaching of the Buddha. It's like the finger pointing to the moon. If we're not able to look beyond the finger, we can never see the moon. Attachment to views, intolerance, discrimination, and dogmatism are the foundation for exclusion, fear, anger, craving, and despair. If you are truly practicing right view, there is no room for these sufferings. You may be able to remove the notion of permanence, but if in doing so you get caught in the notion of impermanence, that doesn't help. You have to be free not only from the notion of permanence, but also from the notion of impermanence. You can suffer because you get caught in the notion of self, but you also suffer if you get caught in the notion of non-self. Right view is free from discrimination and dualistic thinking. You don't need to eliminate one thing and retain its opposite. You're not trying to eliminate death and retain only life. You don't have the intention of eliminating non-being and retaining only being. Being and non-being, the manifestation of a flame. Right view is the foundation of well-being, and wrong view is the foundation of ill-being. It's clear that permanence is a wrong view, because according to our observation, everything is impermanent, constantly changing. Nothing can be the same forever. So immortality is a wrong view. And annihilation, to say that when we die there's nothing left, is also a wrong view. Permanence and annihilation are a pair of opposites. All pairs of opposites are wrong views. Being and non-being, birth and death, and so on. The notion of being and the notion of being and the notion of non-being are both created, let's say that one again. The notion of being with right view, sorry, one more time. The notion of being and the notion of non-being both create a lot of fear. There we go. But with right view, we overcome both notions and we become fearless. We know that to help the flame to manifest, the match needs to be struck against the object. We know that the flame is partially hidden in the matchbox and partially hidden outside of the matchbox. Outside the matchbox, there is oxygen, an essential condition for the manifestation of a flame. Before the flame manifests, should we qualify it as non-existent? With our practice of looking deeply, we see that everything manifests based on various conditions. When conditions are sufficient, the flame manifests. Once the flame has manifested, we tend to say that it exists and it is in the realm of being. And we tend to say that before the flame manifested, it belonged to the realm of the non-being. But reality transcends both notions, being and non-being. Not the same, not different. Suppose I want to light an unlit candle with a lit candle so that I produce another flame. Is this second flame the same flame as the first? Or is it a totally different flame? That is meditation. When you pick up a family album and look at a picture of yourself when you were 5 years old, you see that the little boy or girl in the photo is very different from who you are now. You are the same person as that little girl, or are you a different person? You look so different as far as form is concerned, and you have a very different feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness than you did then. You are quite different from that little girl or that little boy. So are you the same person, or are you a totally different person? This is an example of another set of notions called sameness or otherness. You're not entirely the same, but you're not totally different. Subject and object. Now we come to a pair of notions that is crucial to our study of right view. Subject and object. We usually believe that our consciousness is the subject of perception, and that there is the world out there, which is the object of our perception. And we think that these two things are completely different. There is consciousness in here, the subject of consciousness, and there is the world out there, the object of consciousness. According to the Buddhist teachings, that is the basic error. When you practice mindful breathing in, I'm aware of my breath in, you practice in such a way that you are no longer an observer. You practice in such a way that you become your in-breath. You become a participant, no longer an outside observer. In Buddhism, there are 6 sense organs: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. The first 5 are physiological, and the last is mental. Mind is also an organ, our mental consciousness. The object of the eyes is form. The object of the ears is sound. The object of the nose is smell, and of the tongue is taste, and of the body is touch. The object of the mind is dharmas. A dharma is an object of mind, not an object of reality. When we perceive something, that something is the object of our consciousness. The world is just an object of our mind. Subject and object manifest together at the same time and depend on each other. When you see a mountain, that mountain is the object of your perception, the object of your mind. It's not something separate from your consciousness. To see always means to see something. To hear always means to hear something, and so on. Double grasping. If you believe that there's a subject of consciousness that exists separately from the object of your consciousness, an external world existing separately from your consciousness, then you are caught in an error called double grasping. You are caught by this way of seeing subject and object as 2 different things. Right view is possible only when you overcome the view that subject and object are 2 separate entities. We usually think that the left is the opposite of the right, above is the opposite of below, being is opposite of non-being, life is the opposite of death, happiness is the opposite of suffering. Sometimes we want just one, we don't want the other. We only want happiness, we don't want suffering. Taking time to see interbeing. To see that subject and object are not separate, we need to train ourselves. Right view takes practice. We have to take our time and live our daily lives in such a way that we can see the nature of interbeing in everything. This requires being more aware in our daily actions. This requires the practice of mindful breathing, mindful sitting, mindful walking. Only through taking the time to look deeply can we see that happiness and suffering are not individual matters. Our views aren't only something personal. How we view the world affects everything within it. We are the planet. When we do harm the environment, we do harm to ourselves. When we do harm to another person, we do harm to ourselves. If we're viewing the world in the light of interbeing and right view, we can see this right away. The ecosystems and we humans are not 2 different things. When we kill the ecosystem, we're killing ourselves. We are the ecosystem. The ecosystem is us. We are the planet, and the planet is us. Anything harmful we do to the environment, we do to ourselves. If the minerals, plants, and animals no longer existed, humans would no longer exist either. We can only be here if they are here. We are our ancestors. We know very well that we have ancestors, but our ancestors are not only human. We have animal ancestors, we have plant ancestors, and we have mineral ancestors. Our human ancestors are still very young. Human beings appeared very late in the history of life on Earth. Our animal ancestors are still here with us. The reptiles, the fish, and the ape are still in our blood. Not only were they part of us in the past, but they continue to exist within us. Just look deeply into ourselves. We see that we are the whole of life. We are the whole history of life. A seed of corn. This is a good lesson. I haven't read this one in a while. If you take 1 seed of corn and plant it, it will sprout. When it has 2 leaves, you can ask it if it remembers the time it was a grain of corn. Maybe the corn stalk will be surprised. Me, a seed of corn, I don't believe it. If so, you could tell it, listen, I was there at the very beginning. I brought you home. I put you in this pot. I watered you every day. and I saw you sprout, and from a seed of corn you became a corn stalk. Even if you don't want to accept it, that's the truth. You could try to convince the cornstalk that it was once a seed of corn. Or you could say, dear cornstalk, if you look into yourself with intelligence, you can still see the seed of corn alive in you. It no longer has the form of a seed, but it's always in you. You are that seed of corn. It may be difficult for the cornstalk to accept, but that is the reality. The stalk is the continuation of the seed. If you approach a young person and tell him, you are the continuation of your father, you are your father, because your father is still fully present in every cell of your body. That is the truth. This one always makes me laugh because that's a notion that I struggle with. I don't know my father, and I wish to be nothing like him, even though I don't know him. But as we know, I am still very much my father, a man I don't know. But that's what this lesson always it makes me giggle when I think of it, because it was profound the first time I ever heard of it, like a long time ago, getting over parental issues. You are your father because your father is fully present in every cell of your body. That is the truth. Whatever you do, your father is doing that with you. When you are angry, your father gets angry. When you get angry with yourself, you get angry with your father. And when you get angry with your father, you get angry with yourself. Especially if the young person has a difficult relationship with his father, or if he didn't know his father, these things may be hard to accept. But that is the truth. With mindfulness and concentration, you naturally begin to see things more deeply. You can tell that your body is not just yours. It's also the body of your parents, your ancestors, and all the living species that came before you. If you look deeply in this way, you see that your cells will also live on in all of your descendants. All those who come after you will be part of your continuation. You can see that you are the continuation of your parents with all their positive qualities, talents, and beauty. But you can also see all of their difficulties and challenges living within you. You can transform their suffering for their benefit as well as your own. Great togetherness, no complexes. When you have right view and are able to see your ancestors and descendants in you, then you can have a great togetherness. This very body contains so many elements, our ancestors and descendants, what we consume, the earth, the sun, and the whole cosmos. Our practice is to live harmoniously with all of these elements, which are both within us and around us. The view that we have as separate self is like a prison. When you are imprisoned in your wrong views, you suffer from comparing yourself to others, both inside and outside of your family. We may feel hurt by others, or we may feel proud that we are different and separate from them. Oh, I have nothing to do with that woman, my mother. She's so difficult for me. I have nothing to do with my father, who always verbally abused me and even beat me. I have nothing to do with that man. But the seeds of our ancestors are in us. Breathing in, I see that my father is still in every one of my cells. My mother is in every cell. When you are aware of non-self, there is no question of being greater than, less than, or equal to anybody else, because you and that other person are not separate. If we're not mindful, we only perceive a few parts of ourselves. We pick and choose based on our experience and decide that we are this or that kind of person. Practicing meditation is to recognize your whole self with all these parts you've received from your ancestors, both their strengths and their weaknesses. This may feel intellectual, but if you practice mindful awareness and meditation, you will begin to recognize it. Practicing meditation is practicing right view. You will see deeply that you are a child, the sibling, and the parent. You are the person you hate and the person you love. You need to experience this for yourself to believe it. seeing with our ancestors' eyes. One day I looked outside at a mountain and I saw so clearly that as I was looking at these mountains, all my ancestors, my father, my mother, my grandparents, all the lineages of human ancestors were in me and were looking at the mountain together with me. We saw the beautiful dawn together and enjoyed a concert of color. My eyes belonged to me and also to my ancestors. All those ancestors were admiring the wonderful sight rising sun with me. For many generations, my ancestors worked hard and had many worries and many moments of stress, anger, and fear. Maybe they never had the chance to sit quietly, peacefully, happily, to be with the great togetherness. They never had a chance to sit quietly and follow their breath, to be centered, and to be in touch with their wonderful environment. So when we stop like that, all our ancestors stop at the same time, well synchronized, because they are in our body, in every one of our cells. Now we have the chance to stop. If we are able to stop, we stop for them all, and all of them are stopping together with us. The moment when we can stop and when we can be in touch with the majestic dawn, that is an awakened moment. You are not enlightened as an individual self. Enlightenment is the moment you are in touch deeply with all of your ancestors and descendants and are sharing with them your peace, your joy, and your happiness. That doesn't mean stopping all sense of oneself, but you can smile and know that all of them are smiling your wonderful smile. You walk peacefully, and all of them are walking peacefully with you. We are each other. We need to see the interconnection between ourselves and others. Palestinians and Israelis need to see the interconnection with each other to see that they are one. Although Christians, Muslims, and Jews come from one root, they behave like the cornstalk who forgets that she was born from the seed of corn. Right thinking, non-discrimination. The Noble Eightfold Path offered by the Buddha does not begin with right thinking, because right thinking must be based on right view. Right view gives us deep understanding that leads to right thinking. Right thinking has the connotation of right intention in it. When you think, you also express your intention. In the creation of the code of ethics based on the insight of right view, our intention is the starting point. Right thinking is thinking that embodies the insight of non-duality, emptiness, and interbeing. It is possible for us to produce thoughts that go along with this kind of insight. Such thoughts will heal us and heal the world because they remove separation and despair. Right thinking is the thinking that goes along with understanding and compassion. If we produce a thought that doesn't have understanding and compassion, it's not right thinking. Right thinking brings well-being. As soon as we produce a thought of reconciliation, compassion, understanding, and non-discrimination, we feel healing take place in our bodies and minds, and we feel better right away. Right thinking can heal and transform us. If we produce a thought in line with wrong thinking, a thought that's full of hate, anger, or despair, it destroys our health, our harmony, and makes us suffer. It brings ill-being to us right away, and it also brings ill-being to the world. Right thinking is thinking that goes in the direction of non-discrimination, the kind of thinking that goes in the direction of understanding and compassion. We can always produce a thought that's free from discrimination, free from dualistic thinking, free from anger and separation, and full of understanding and compassion. If discrimination is still there, love and understanding are not possible. There is a wisdom called the wisdom of non-discrimination. When we're able to produce a thought in line with right thinking, full of compassion and understanding, That thought immediately begins to heal us and heal the world. Where are we here? We got a ways to go yet. When we produce a thought of division, hatred, and anger, that thought begins to destroy our body and mind and begins to destroy the world. It's a destructive thought. If we look into our body, we see that birth and death occur every second. Millions of cells are dying and new ones are being born inside us at each moment. Birth and death lean on each other to be possible. With that insight, we're no longer afraid of dying. Birth, life, and death always coexist in the present moment. You don't need to wait until the moment you die in order to make peace with death. If death is there, life is also there, because death and life are interconnected. We have been used to thinking dualistically, and we suffer because of that. That's why we have to train ourselves in non-dualistic thinking that's formed by right view. It's very easy for us to produce a thought in line with non-discrimination, understanding, and love, a thought that has the power to heal ourselves and heal the world. Your thoughts are your continuation. In Buddhism, thinking is already action. By your thinking, you can destroy the world. But it's equally true that your thinking can save the world and bring healing. Your thought bears your signature. When you produce a thought, it bears your signature. It's you who has produced that thought. You are responsible for it. If it's a thought of compassion, forgiveness, non-discrimination, you will continue beautifully into the future because that thought has your signature on it. You are the author of the action. This is also true about what you say. If what you say expresses forgiveness, compassion, or non-discrimination, your words bear your signature. You can't say, "No, I didn't say that." You did say that. Your signature is in it. You can't deny that. Action is the same. Whatever you have done bears your signature. Even when your body is no longer there, your thought continues. Right speech. Right speech is the third element of the Noble Eightfold Path. Whenever you say or write something, whether professionally or personally, it should be said with awareness of non-discrimination, understanding, and compassion. What you say can heal yourself, others, and the world. We know that much suffering is caused by wrong speech. There are 4 guidelines concerning right speech. 1, speaking truthfully without lies. 2, speak consistently without saying one thing to one person and something else to another. 3, speak respectfully without insult. And 4, speak accurately without exaggeration. Then we are practicing right speech. When you have right thinking, you know how to have right speech. You know that your beloved is impermanent, his mind is impermanent, and his body is impermanent. Yet in daily life you presume that he is permanent, and so you take him for granted. Right thinking means you know he is impermanent. With this insight, you won't be angry. You'll try to do and say things in a different way. So don't speak harshly saying, "He betrayed me." Instead say, "Oh, I see that I'm partly to blame for the situation." Or, "I'm responsible for not handling this situation well," and so on. Then you have right speech. Imagine you're sitting down to write a letter full of forgiveness and compassion. While you're writing that letter, you're healing yourself. Even if the other person hasn't yet read your letter, in the world around you begins to heal. You can practice right speech when you send an email, and it can relieve the suffering inside you and that suffering in the other person right away. Why wait? We can always practice right speech to heal ourselves, to reconcile with ourselves and with the world. Right speech is speech that expresses non-discrimination, forgiveness, understanding, support, and love. We know that when we're able to say or write something like that, we feel wonderful. It's so liberating and healing. It brings relief. Right speech brings well-being. Anything that we say that contains discrimination, hate, and the desire to punish will make us suffer and will make others suffer. Speak skillfully so that the teachings aren't misunderstood. When the Buddha spoke about emptiness, he was very afraid that his students would take it as a view. When he spoke about no self, he was afraid that his students would take this as a view as well. We're generally caught in the view of self. We can also be caught in the view of no self. When our foundation is right view, the emptiness of all views, we are free from the view of self and no self. When you speak, you must be careful to use the words and images that are informed by right view. Speak skillfully, and whatever you offer it skillfully, so that the other person won't get caught in a view. The Buddha said, "My teaching is like a finger pointing to the moon. It's not my intention to show you my finger. It's my intention to show you the moon in the sky. But if you take my finger to be the moon, you will be lost." Obama's Egypt speech. The speech President Obama gave in Cairo University on June 4th, 2009, he used right speech in his attempt to ease tensions between the United States and the Islamic world. He talked with humility, recognizing the values of Islam and Islamic people. Pardon me. That kind of loving speech belongs to the Noble Eightfold Path. It can release the tension in international affairs. Obama said, "I want to begin anew with Islam. The U.S. and Muslims are not enemies. The U.S. should not exclude Muslims, and the Muslims should not exclude the U.S. We recognize all the good things that Islam has offered to the heritage and culture of humankind. Obama is one of the few politicians who knows how to use loving speech with humility. A speech alone, if it is right speech, could help remove a lot of suffering. Much suffering is brought about by wrong speech. Wrong speech is speech that does not have openness, that does not have understanding, compassion, or reconciliation. When we write something, when we say something on the telephone, what we say should be right speech. It should convey our insight, understanding, and compassion. When we practice right speech, we feel wonderful in our body and our mind, and the one who listens to us feels wonderful also. It's possible for us to use right speech, the speech of compassion, tolerance, and forgiveness, several times a day. It does not cost anything, and it heals. It heals us, and it heals the world. Right action. The Sanskrit word karma means action. The meaning also includes the result of our actions. Action in Buddhism is threefold: action of body, speech, and mind. Thinking is already action. Speech is action, and bodily movement is action. When you produce in terms of thought, speech, and action, when you produce in terms of thought, speech, and action, it is your continuation, your karma. Sorry about that. The dissolution of this body does not affect your continuation. In every moment, we are producing the three kinds of action: thought, speech, and physical action. Our actions will have an effect on us and on the world. Your karma can assure a beautiful and better continuation. If we know how to handle our thinking, speech, and action, we will continue to create happiness in the world, even when our body is no longer present in its current form. Thinking is the first kind of action. Thinking can affect the world. If you think wrongly, the world will suffer, and you will suffer as well. So you have to practice right thinking. Thoughts in line with right thinking express elements of non-discrimination, interbeing, understanding, forgiveness, and compassion. Such a thought will have an effect right away on you, your health, your mind, and on the world. By producing right thinking, you can heal yourself, your body, and your mind. If your thinking is wrong, it destroys your body and your mind. It's very important to learn how to produce a thought of compassion, forgiveness, understanding, and non-discrimination. Right thinking can heal you and heal the world. Speaking can also change the world. If we're capable of saying or writing something in line with compassion, understanding, non-discrimination, and inclusiveness, we feel wonderful in the body and in the mind. That kind of speech will have a healing effect. After you've been able to say something kind, forgiving, and compassionate, you feel much better. When you write a letter full of compassion and forgiveness, you feel very good within yourself. Although the other person hasn't yet read it, you haven't yet posted the letter, you feel wonderful and liberated already. Right speech can heal. It can liberate. It can heal and liberate you and help to heal and liberate other people in the world. Speech is the second form of action. The third form of action is bodily action. If you do something that supports, protects, comforts, or saves someone, you feel wonderful within yourself. You get the effect right away. Triple action involves body, speech, and mind. With the insight of interbeing, no self, and non-duality, our thinking will have a chance to be right thinking. Our words will have a chance to be right speech, and our action will have the chance to be right action. Every thought, every word, every act of ours bears our signature. Oops. There we go. Make sure I stay here. Hello. All right. Every thought, every word, every action bears our signature. Our karma continues us. Our notions of permanence and annihilation should be transcended in order for us to have right view. Right view is the absence of all views, including the views of permanence and annihilation. So if we have lost someone who is very close to us and we are grieving her death, we have to look again. That person is still continuing. We could do something to help her continue more beautifully. She is still alive inside us and around us. With our new way of looking, we can still recognize her all around us, the same way we recognize our cloud in a cup of tea. When you drink your cup of tea with mindfulness and concentration, you can have the insight that the cloud is in your tea, very close. You have never lost her. She is still alive, very near you. She may be in a new form, different than in the past. That is the kind of insight we should have to overcome grief. We think that we have lost her, but she hasn't died. She hasn't disappeared. She continues in her new form. And when we have to practice looking deeply in order to recognize her continuation and support that. By producing right thinking, right speech, and right action, we can support her. Darling, I know you are there somehow, very real to me. I am breathing for you. I am looking around for you. I enjoy life for you. And I know that you are still there, very close to me, and you are in me. In this way, we can transform our suffering and feel much better. If you have the insight of interbeing, what you think will be right thinking, what you say will be right speech, and what you do will be right action. It will be very easy for you to select the kind of livelihood that can express compassion and understanding. You know how to make good use of your time to transform suffering into happiness and help people. Karma is like a savings account where you deposit your thought, speech, and action. Your action continues always, even after the dissolution of this body. The thinking, the speaking, and the acting is what we perform every day. We can offer our thinking, our speech, and our actions to the world. That is our individual contribution to the global healing and to the global ethic. It is possible to offer the best kind of thinking, the best kind of speech, and the best kind of actions. Those are our products, our continuation. They will not be lost. They will continue in the cosmos. The effects of our thinking, speech, and action will continue whether this body is still here or has disintegrated. The Buddha wants us to pay attention to each of the three kinds of actions, So each is a category of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right action refers particularly to right bodily action. Thinking and speaking are listed separately. Right bodily action brings relief, support, protection, and saves the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. Right action can help protect the environment and reverse the process of global climate change. Right action is possible in the here and now. Consuming in mindfulness is also right action. Right action brings well-being, just as wrong action brings ill-being. Right livelihood. Right livelihood is the kind of occupation that will not make us suffer, and by which we can express our ideal of compassion and understanding. Those of us who have that kind of job, I'm going to restart this paragraph. Right livelihood is the kind of occupation that will not make us suffer, and by which we can express our ideals of compassion and understanding. Those of us who have the kind of job that can help us express our love, our care, and our compassion should be happy about that. It's wonderful to have that kind of livelihood. Even if it brings less money, it brings much happiness. You know you're on the right path, and that alone can make you very happy. Right livelihood brings well-being. Wrong livelihood brings ill-being. It destroys our planet and creates toxins that enter our bodies and minds. The Noble Eightfold Path recommends right livelihood. We know that the cause of suffering lies in wrong livelihood when we earn our living in a way that does damage to ourselves and to others. Suppose our nation is selling weapons to poor countries and has become a very important industry of the nation. Many industrialized countries sell weapons to poorer countries. That is not right livelihood. Imagine a little boy holding an empty plate for many hours without really receiving anything to eat. But someone offers him grenades and bombs and guns. It doesn't make sense. If you're a filmmaker, you know that violent films sell very well, but when people consume these films, they consume a lot of violence, anger, and fear. People get intoxicated by these films every day. Or perhaps you make cars that consume a lot of gasoline simply because people want to buy them. You're not thinking about the pollution or the shortage of energy. When we practice right livelihood, we think about the impact of our work, not just its profitability. I'm trying to see if I can make it through to the end of this. My throat is getting tired. I can do it. I can make it. Right diligence. The term Samyak Pradhana The term Samyak Pradhana is sometimes translated as right effort. My apologies, I probably pronounced that wrong. I prefer the word diligence to the word effort because an effort can make you tired. But when you're diligent, you don't need to be tired. Don't practice mindfulness intensively. Just practice regularly and diligently. There are those of us who practice very intensively for a few weeks, and then after that we abandon the practice. There are those of us who practice regularly, not intensively, but continuously. If someone asks you why you practice meditation or mindful awareness, a good answer might be, because I like it, or because I enjoy doing it. If you don't enjoy the practice, you have to make an effort. In making an effort, you get tired, and finally you abandon the practice. The best reason to do some element of the practice is because I like it. Why do you practice walking meditation? Because I like it. Why do you eat vegetarian food? Because I like it. If you like it, you will continue to do it. Right diligence brings well-being. The practice of mindful walking and movement and the practice of mindful breathing and smiling bring well-being, peace, and happiness. After enlightenment, the Buddha continued the practice. The Buddha was already the Buddha, so why did he have to practice walking mindfully? because he liked it. Wrong diligence. There are those of us who are very diligent, but our diligence is wrong diligence. Wrong diligence can bring ill-being. We are caught in our work, for example, and we don't take care of ourselves or our loved ones. They are caught, sucked into the work. We can work very hard and make a lot of effort, but still have no happiness. Many of us are running around too much and are stressed from the practice of wrong diligence. Instead of practicing diligence to go in the direction of insight, we are diligently going in search of money, fame, or pleasure. I'm an ex-workaholic. That's my story. Doesn't get you far, not in terms of happiness. Our tools for right diligence. The Buddha described right diligence in 4 steps. The 4 steps involve practicing mindfulness in such a way that we focus on watering the positive seeds within us and giving the negative seeds a rest. The 4 steps inter-are. Each step contains the other 3. In Buddhist psychology, our consciousness is represented by a circle with 2 layers. The lower level of our consciousness is called store consciousness, and it contains all the seeds of well-being and ill-being. When we water a seed with our awareness, it becomes energized and comes up to the upper level called mind consciousness. Once in mind consciousness, it's no longer called a seed, but a mental formation. Mind consciousness is like the living room, and the store consciousness is like the basement. Usually, we put in the basement the things we don't like or don't want in our living room. The first step in right diligence is to try our best not to allow the unbeneficial seeds to manifest. In us, there are beneficial and unbeneficial seeds. In the depths of our consciousness, there are seeds of love, compassion, joy, forgiveness, and so on. All these very beneficial things are in us. It's like the many kinds of bacteria in our intestines or in our mouths. There are beneficial microflora that are very useful, but there are also other seeds in store consciousness. Our anger, fear, despair, and trauma are all there. The first step to right diligence is to be attentive and skillful enough not to allow the unbeneficial seeds to manifest. We allow them to sleep quietly and peacefully down there in store consciousness. Don't go down and set them off, because when we wake them up, they may cause trouble. The second aspect of practice is that if by chance the seeds of anger, despair, jealousy, suffering, or trauma has already manifested as a mental formation, we do something in order to help it go back down to sleep again as a seed in store consciousness. When a seed manifests in mind consciousness and stays there for a long time, the seed grows stronger at the base. So, if an unbeneficial mental formation manifests, don't allow it to stay too long. Do something to help it go back. Not suppressing it, but helping it to go back. One way is to invite a beneficial seed to come up and replace it. Changing the peg. The Buddha uses the image of a carpenter's peg. To join 2 pieces of wood, the carpenter makes a hole in each, aligns the holes, and drives a peg. But if a peg becomes rotten or is no longer good, he changes the peg by using a new peg to drive the old one out and replace it. Changing the peg is a recommendation made by the Buddha. When an unbeneficial mental formation manifests, the practitioner should know how to replace it with a good one. We can use the image of a CD. If a CD doesn't please us, why do we have to keep listening to it? We can change the CD. If we don't like anger or despair, why do we have to sit there and suffer? If we don't want to keep watching a particular film or TV program, we can change the channel. There are positive seeds in all of us of compassion, love, joy, and peace. So invite them up. It's very pleasant and it can change the situation right away. You don't have to fight or suppress the other mental formations. The third aspect of right diligence is to invite the beneficial seeds to come up. Think of a beneficial seed as you would a friend you haven't seen for a while. Her presence in the living room brings a lot of joy. So send her an invitation. You know that her presence in your living room will dissipate the darkness and sorrow. That friend is in you, the capacity to be happy, joyful, and compassionate. And these friends are always available. We should invite them into the living room often. It's not too difficult to do. Every time I have a friend like that in my living room, I enjoy it very much. Joy and happiness are always possible. We can create a feeling of joy, happiness, serenity, peace, self-fulfillment, or forgiveness by giving the beneficial things a chance to manifest. The fourth aspect of the practice of right diligence is that when something beneficial arises, we try to keep it with us as long as possible in the living room like a friend. When a good friend has come to your living room, we want her to stay. The longer a beneficial seed stays in the living room, the stronger it will become. When good things arise, try to keep them in mind consciousness. At the base, that good seed will continue to grow, and the next time it will manifest more easily. Sometimes you don't have to invite that seed up, it just comes into your living room. Happiness becomes a regular thing, a normal thing. Before happiness was not normal. We would only be happy from time to time. But if the seeds of happiness and love have become strong, they will manifest by themselves without invitation, and we will welcome them. These 4 practices of right diligence take practice. Keep the difficult seeds sleeping down there. Don't invite them up. But if they have manifested, try your best to let them go back down to store consciousness as soon as possible. As for the good things that haven't manifested, invite them to manifest. And when they have manifested, invite them to stay longer. There is the true meaning of diligence. It can bring so much happiness. Right mindfulness. The path of the Buddha can be understood in terms of energy. We know that mindfulness is an energy that we generate during our practice. Generating mindfulness is the basic practice. Mindfulness is the kind of energy that helps us to be here, established in the present moment. Mindfulness helps bring the mind back to the body so that we can truly be present, truly alive, and able to touch the wonders of life that are available to us right now. Mindfulness helps us to be aware of what is going on inside us, our happiness and also our suffering. Mindfulness helps us handle our happiness and our suffering, as well as to handle the suffering of the world and to work for the happiness of the world. The energy of mindfulness carries with it the energy of concentration. When you're mindful of something, you're somehow already concentrated on that thing. When you bring your attention to something, if you can preserve and keep your mindfulness alive, you'll naturally be concentrated on the object of your mind. The more concentrated you are, the more mindful you become. So the two energies support each other. When your mindfulness and concentration are powerful enough, you begin to have insight. Insight is enlightenment, is an understanding. We don't have to practice for a certain number of years in order to have insight. Insight can be our daily business. Whenever there is mindfulness, there is already some insight. Suppose you're breathing in mindfully. This is already insight because although everyone is breathing, not everyone is aware that they are breathing. You're aware that you're breathing in. That's already insight. That's already enlightenment. That's already awakening. When you breathe in mindfully, you can realize that you are alive. Because you are not alive, you would not be breathing in. So breathing in, you gain the insight that you are alive. And to be alive is something very important. It's a miracle, the greatest of all miracles, and you can rejoice in life. You can breathe in such a way that your breath in is a kind of celebration. With your breath in, you can celebrate being alive. The practice of mindful breathing can be very deep because it brings mindfulness, concentration, and insight. When we have insight, we know what to do and what not to do, what to say and what not to say, what to think and what not to think. The three kinds of energy you generate in your practice are the foundation of any kind of ethic. You can't speak about morality, ethics, or a code of behavior without speaking of mindfulness, concentration, and insight. It is with the energy of mindfulness, concentration, and insight that you can find a path, build a path, and offer a path for humanity. A path that will lead to peace and happiness, a path of transformation and healing. It's so important that whenever we reflect on the subject of a global ethic, we always do so in terms of practice. Our basic practice is the practice of generating the energy of mindfulness, concentration, and insight. Insight will bring compassion, love, harmony, and peace. When we practice right mindfulness, we bring about right concentration. With right concentration, we can overcome all wrong views and arrive at the insight that liberates us from fear, despair, and anger. Insight is possible only with the energy of mindfulness and concentration. Mindfulness is the kind of energy that brings our mind back to our bodies, so that we can be well established in the present moment and truly live our lives. Mindfulness allows us to be aware of what is going on in the present moment, in our bodies, in our feelings, in our perceptions, and in the world. So how can there be wrong mindfulness? Why do we need to talk of right mindfulness? If we keep thinking of things that bring us sorrow and fear, or if we're full of worries about the future, we have no space for right mindfulness. It's a natural tendency to focus our mindfulness on the past because we have lived, and every experience of our lives is stored in stored consciousness. In our daily lives, we're used to sliding back into the past. The little child in us is used to that environment. The child doesn't want to come out with us into the present moment. It becomes a habit to listen to that child call you back to the past. You find it more comfortable to be in the past, but we know that your life is here and now. We are no longer as fragile or vulnerable as when we were children. We are very capable of living safely in the present moment. You can always come home to the present moment. You may have the habit of visiting the past, and you think that the past is your home. You always want to go home. You feel comfortable there. You're comfortable, but you suffer. We say there's no place like home, but the past is not your true home. Your true home is in the here and now. Only in the here and now can you encounter real life. In the past, you can encounter only memories. There is still a lot of fear, anxiety, and anguish in us. Wrong diligence, focusing tirelessly on the past or on the future, leads to wrong mindfulness. If we are only focused on how to obtain power, money, and guaranteed safety, this is wrong mindfulness. We are driven by our cravings and completely forget to see that life around us is so beautiful. With right mindfulness, we dwell in the present moment, in touch with what is still positive inside us and around us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got how many pages? 1, 2, 3, 4 more pages. We got this. We're doing it. Breathing your way home. When we get pulled away from right mindfulness, bringing our body and mind back together can bring us home to the present moment. Usually, it is our mind that leaves and goes into the past or the future while our body stays right here. But with mindfulness, we can always come back to our body. When we recognize the presence of our attention in us and we can release it, our mindfulness grows stronger. If we can see the presence of our suffering and its causes, We know we don't want that suffering any longer. Just acknowledging that we don't want to have that tension or that suffering inside us puts us in touch with the third noble truth, well-being. When you eliminate the causes of tension, you are more relaxed and you have more happiness. The way to release all of these tensions is with our mindful breath. So we always start with mindfulness. Mindfulness brings the mind to the present moment, and we see and experience things more deeply. Going back to the present moment, you can see if your body is tense. We look deeply and see that, I am tense because I'm carried away by my worry, anxiety, and plans. Then we can make the determination not to be carried away like that. When you have right mindfulness, you see deeply what brings you suffering and what brings you happiness. Right mindfulness is the awareness that you can be relaxed, happy, and at peace right away, when you no longer feel the need to run away. Right concentration. Right mindfulness carries right concentration. When you have concentration, you see things more deeply and have more insight. Mindfulness brings concentration, which in turn brings you insight about how to have more ethically, about how to behave more ethically, Right mindfulness and right concentration help us look deeply into the nature of reality and arrive at the insight of non-discrimination and intervene. The last thing we can offer to the world is our insight. To live our life and in mindfulness and with concentration is to continue to produce insight. For our own liberation, healing, and nourishment, and for the liberation, healing, and nourishment of the world. Concentrate on something interesting. Concentration is always concentration on something, and it's very easy to concentrate if the object of your concentration is interesting. You don't need to go to a retreat or sit in meditation in order to do that. You can do it at any time. Anything can be interesting. For a scientist, a piece of dust is very interesting. There's a lot to explore in a piece of dust. For a biologist, a leaf can be intriguing. We need to find objects of concentration that interest us. Concentration on impermanence. Impermanence is an important object for our concentration. Things are impermanent. Even if a person is hurtful, thanks to impermanence, that person may encounter some good conditions that allow him to become a less angry person. Our situation may be bad, but thanks to awareness of impermanence, we can cultivate a more positive view and perhaps the situation can improve. That is the fruit of right concentration. Wrong concentration only brings us suffering. Suppose someone concentrates on obtaining the object of his craving. If the object of his concentration is power, money, fame, sex, or infatuation, his mind will tend to be carried away by that, and he will make himself and others suffer greatly. Many concentrations. Some people have misperceptions about Buddhism, and they think it's very pessimistic. Buddhist teachings say that everything is empty. Some people misperceive this and think of emptiness as negative. It is true that Buddhism says we are empty of a separate self, but we are full of the whole universe. In Buddhism, we have many doors to insight, many concentrations and practices for looking deeply. There are people who only look into impermanence and they perceive how all things change. They only use the door of impermanence, but for them, that may well be the door that can open to enlightenment. There are those who look at emptiness. They can be enlightened too. There are those who look at the door of dependent co-arising, and they see that many conditions are required for something to manifest. They see a flame and know that not only the match, but the oxygen, the matchbox, and the person who strikes the match must all come together for that flame to manifest. Looking deeply into that one door, you see all other doors. The insight that there are many paths to enlightenment is the fruit of our practice and is the ground of morality and ethics. There are many different concentrations we can practice, but our concentration must be right concentration. With our right mindfulness and right concentration, there is no way to arrive at insight. Let me say that sentence. I think I said it wrong. Without right mindfulness and right concentration, there is no way to arrive at insight. The Noble Eightfold Path as the way out of pain. When we look deeply into the nature of ill-being, we see so much tension, pain, and suffering. We hold our suffering in our bodies, in our relationships, in our emotions, and this influences how we think and act in the world. We ask what Buddhism can do to release that tension, pain, and suffering. The answer is that it can remind us that this suffering eases when we follow the Eightfold Path. The path of the 8 right practices is a path for everyone, not just for monks and nuns, for Buddhists, but for everyone living in the world. We have to live our daily lives in such a way that we live deeply in mindfulness, so that we can see the nature of interbeing in everything. Following the Noble Eightfold Path brings us joy and ease and helps transform intolerance, dogmatism, attachment to views, discrimination, and violence. That was section 6 of Good Citizens, Creating an Enlightened Society by Thich Nhat Hanh, our friend Thai. Again, my name is Ash of Asharic Meditation. You can find all previous parts of this book on my YouTube already. I'm going to upload the 6th part today. So in a little bit, you can find it there. Again, on YouTube, you can just follow links in my bio or this name there. You can search for Asharic Meditation. And I thank you guys so much for joining me today to listen to some live reading. I think there are 3 very small parts to this book left over. So we should be getting through this week. If not, it might blend into next week a little bit. But yeah, I'm just very grateful that you're here listening with me. And that, yeah, all good stuff. Thank you so much.